Hey, thanks for watching 4-Color Commentary. I'm Mark Allen, and today I'm just showing off some covers, some of my favorite covers, and there's a lot of them. Listen, here's one of the advantages of being a 51-year-old comic book collector. I've had time, and I've done it more than once, to accumulate, collect, and get rid of. And accumulate and collect and get rid of. And over the years, what I've done is I have narrowed comic collection down to those comics that are nostalgic for me, and those comics that, to me, are just, they are done by some of the most amazing artisans of the medium of comic books. And it is a visual medium first. I want good stories, but I got to tell you, it's hard for me, in fact, impossible for me to pass up beautiful artwork, even if the story suffers somewhat. So that having been said, I'm just going to share, I'm going to start a series of videos where I'm sharing some of my favorite covers out of my collection. And a lot of it has to do with, some of it will have to do with nostalgia, some of it will have to do with composition and the talent level of the artist and that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm going to start in the A's because, again, you know, been doing this for a lot of years and can afford to just start in the A's. And so we're starting with a little comic called Abadazad. Abadazad is a comic that was put out by Cross Gen. Some of y'all remember Cross Gen back in the day. And J.M. DeMatteis was the writer. Mike Plug, I believe, co-plotted, but did amazing artwork. Here's the cover for Abadazad #1. If you're familiar with Mike Plug, then you know, and you're probably, your favorite stuff of his is from the Marvel horror stuff, the Bronze Age Marvel horror stuff, I should say, not early, but Bronze Age Marvel horror. I did some Frankenstein, did some Man Thing, and that kind of thing. Also, I did some werewolf, and but anyway, this is some of the stuff he did for Abadazad, or for Cross Gen. This is later on. Now, my understanding of this is that he when it didn't take off, when this book didn't take off in the comic market, they went on to do storybooks. And Mike Plug indeed has a storybook type of style and illustrator's type of style. Here's the other #1 issue, and I'm get a little closer to that because some of that is black and white. It had a variant cover, all right, but just really neat stuff. I always liked Plug's illustrative style. It did look like he could be a storybook artist as well. Abadazad issue #2 with the creepy blue three-eyed woman there, but still beautifully rendered, beautifully drawn. And then a great issue #3. I believe only 3 issues were done of Abadazad before they went on to do storybooks, to continue Abadazad in storybooks. But one of these days I'll do a review on it or something. But if they did more than 3 issues, somebody out there please let me know. But anyway, here's Abadazad #3 with a kicking sea monster, really cool Plug's sea monster on there, just amazing. See, doesn't that look like it'd be an illustration out of a storybook? And so can't remember the guys. Well, I'm not even. I can't remember the book now. Where the Wild Things Are. Where the Wild Things Are. My wife loves that book. As a children's teacher, she loves a lot of the children's books. And early education is her thing, and so his style kind of reminds me that he could do Where the Wild Things Are. Now, Billy Tucci, you know Billy Tucci as an artist, a very talented artist. Billy Tucci began doing, he did a Christian comic a few years ago called A Child Is Born. Did it for Christmas. I actually have the color version on the spinner rack. Yeah, it was kind of expensive to buy and put on the spinner rack, but I wanted my kids to see it. I wanted them to have it. But then I found one day in a dollar box, I found the artist's edition. Look at that illustration of Mary and the Mother Jesus on that cover. Just beautifully, beautifully done. And Billy Tucci work. And just a wonder. And this is not done as much like a comic book as a book. The illustrations are more book-like. But I just love that cover. And a lot of the same stuff inside. I'm not going to show it to you just because I wanted to get this video out and got to head off and see a production that my kids are in tonight on stage. So anyway, but I wanted to show you that. Go out there and find that. A Child Is Born Artist's Edition, or even the regular edition. Now, staying with the A's this whole video, when John Byrne back in the 80s came to Action Comics, when he left Marvel, came to do Superman and Action Comics, with some of the best stuff, some of the best superhero stuff that I remember ever being done. Now that's including, I'm not saying it's better than his Fantastic Four or any of that. I even enjoyed his Namor. I've got a review of John Byrne's Namor the Submariner on my channel. You should look it up. Did it several years ago, but it's just a great, I loved his art and I loved his storyline through Namor. But Action Comics, his Superman and assorted characters there, DC characters, I loved it. But the cover, some of the covers had some of the best use of primary colors, blue and yellow and green and red and all that stuff. So just amazing. They were so eye-catching. And the first one that I pulled out for this particular video is number 588 with Hawkman and Hawkwoman on the cover with him. Just the bright yellow background and against the blue and red of Superman's suit, and even the yellow and green in their costumes. You know, it's amazing. Only superheroes in comic books could wear such ugly costumes and still be part of such beautiful covers. The next one was actually 589 when he was starring with the Green Lantern and the Green Lantern Corps. Again, the yellows and the green and Superman's costume and everything, just striking. I mean, when you see that in the comic shop, it would stand out against all the other books, or on the you know, at the grocery store, or at the drugstore in the comic rack. It would just stand out. The same with 590, 3 right in a row there, with the Metal Men, and again the chemo taking the shape of Superman, and the green and the yellow background and the red logo. Just I love how these colors pop. See, I have a theory as to why it is that comic shops, I mean, those of us who love comics, we get a certain feeling when we walk into a comic shop, and it's all the colors. And especially if your comic book, if your comic dealer puts up, you know, comic posters on the walls and stuff like that, and there's art on the walls. It's just amazing. It's an amazing place. I don't know the psychology of it, but I believe those colors, you know, I know there's certain colors, primary colors like yellow and green and red, I believe, that affect the cones in your eyes more than, or the rods in your eyes more than other colors. And so comics use a lot of those primary colors. And here's another one, 591, Action Comics 591, when Superman and Superboy tussle, you know. And I remember finding this comic, you know, in my hometown at the time when I was in my I think it was early 20s, maybe. It was, no, it was even earlier than that, August of 87. So I would have been just a year out of high school, and saw that on the rack. I didn't even pick it up at my comic shop. Saw that on the rack. Now this one particularly came from the comic shop, but originally when I picked it up, it was on the rack. And loved it, and that was one of the first times that some of my friends knew I read comics, because, you know, growing up a child of the 80s, it wasn't a cool thing like it is today to read comics. And I picked that up in front of one of my friends, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "I don't care." Great comic, just a great story, wonderful cover. Now, next one is an Action Comics Annual #1 from 1987. I also have a review of this, a video review of this on my channel. You should go see it. This is an Action Comics Annual with Superman and Batman, written by John Byrne, with art by Arthur Adams and Dick Giordano. This is the cover, and just again, I love the pairings of Batman and Superman. You know, when it started, they weren't pals at this point anymore. But they had a respect for each other. They had two very different styles, and they admired one another, even though they didn't, you know, necessarily always like one another. But I like this cover, and this one, if you'll notice, this one right up here. Let's see if I can get it on camera. Signed by Arthur Adams in 1997. I had him sign that at DEF CON Tulsa, and what a great story. If you've never read it, go out there and get it. Next, Action Comics number 41, but from August of 2015. Pretty recent. But this was a variant. This was a Darwin Cook variant, and as Cook is no longer with us, you know, those artists that made more of an impact in the short time they were in comics, I admire them, especially whenever we lose them, you know, and for whatever reason. But this was the Action Comics 41 variant, the Darwin Cook variant, with the Joker on the cover. The Joker has just squirted Superman a face full of acid, and Soups isn't too happy about it, you can tell. And the Joker even the Joker may be reconsidering his actions at that point right there. But I like that when I saw that, it just spoke to me, and of course I got it in a dollar box because I don't just shop willy-nilly anymore for comics. I don't just pick up comics for the cover at cover price anymore, and not at $3.99. So, and my understanding is comic prices are about to go up again. I think I heard that on a comic blog or something somewhere. Anyway, here, or read it on a comic blog, heard it on a comic channel maybe. All right, Adventure Comics number 438, an amazing Jim Aparo Spectre cover with gorillas. Now, I'm not one of these big gorilla cover guys, but I just like the mood there. I like the terror on the man's face, the emotion, while the Spectre seems to be in the background watching coldly. Can't really tell if he's concerned or not, if he cares or not, but the man certainly cares. And I love the blues. I love the green of the Spectre's shroud, and so just amazing, amazing cover there. Those were probably the best stories, the best work of Jim Aparo, in my opinion. Even as good or better than his early Batman stuff was his Spectre stuff. And okay, Adventures into Fear number 16, a Frank Brunner Man-Thing cover. And again, just the detail and the earthiness of that cover, and no pun intended with our plant-based hero there, but the fear on the face of the construction workers, and Man-Thing just turning up all of a sudden there in the middle of where they're trying to make a road or whatever they're doing there. But love the Brunner work. Now, this next one, I've mentioned before that I love the Alien Legion series. One of these days I'll do an actual review of it. I want to try to get back to doing those video reviews hopefully soon. But there was a storyline for a while where the Alien Legion was trapped on a planet, couldn't get off planet, and we're trying to protect some dignitaries from a race of aliens called the Harkalon. And in this one, Jugger Grimrod. Jugger Grimrod, who was kind of just a Punisher type member of the Alien Legion, just a unlikable but really tough guy, killer. And he's on the cover of this comic. This is a personal favorite. Has not as much to do with colors and such as composition as just emotion. And you have Jugger Grimrod engaged in a fight to the death with a member of the Harkalon race there, and he's plunging that knife into the Harkalon, and Harkalon's got his tail wrapped around Jugger's throat, and you wonder, is Grimrod going to pull this one off or not? But that was a great story. If you've never read any Alien Legion, find the issue number 1, the first series, and which was in 1984, 85. But just a great series, great characterization, loved the art, and just a wonderful series. Now, a couple more. Alpha Flights. When John Byrne, there was a lot of desire, I think, on the part of fans for a long time for John Byrne to do an Alpha Flight series. Alpha Flight went over very well when they guest starred in the X-Men and back in the day. And in 1983, 82 or 83, they finally began an Alpha Flight series. I know somewhere I read John Byrne said that he never intended Alpha Flight to be a team or a group of characters that could carry their own book. But, Marvel wrote a check. And so he actually did have a plan. He said he had a long-term plan for Alpha Flight. And it was to do the singular adventures for the first year, and then have them come back together at the end of the year for a team adventure. And I think that was to be done a couple of different years, but I can't remember. But anyway, I think he had a formula for that book. But originally he said it was never meant to be. He never thought of them as a team that could carry their own book. But anyway, Alpha Flight number 3, the amazing uses of the black and white, with Aurora trapped in the in the black room, but with the white bars shooting out everywhere, encasing her and threatening to trap her. And if you don't know about this character, she was split personality, and I believe a bit claustrophobic, and if not not claustrophobic, great trauma would trigger the the switch back to her other persona, which was not Aurora. It was Jean-Marie, and so that was a tight situation right there where she was in danger of switching back to a meek and mild Jean-Marie. So anyway, great but beautiful cover, a beautiful use of black and white, and just amazing. And then lastly, Alpha Flight number 9. Now this one I liked because it introduced a mainstream Marvel villain into the mix of Alpha Flight. It was a solo adventure with Sasquatch, but the villain was the Super Skrull. And this vantage point, where the reader is left to guess, especially if the reader did not read the previous issue and got it at the newsstand instead of at the comic shop, they would see that arm and what would they think? What? Sasquatch is heading up, going up against the Thing. He's going to have to face the Thing. No, it wasn't Ben Grimm. That was Super Skrull. And but I just liked this cover. I liked the vantage point of it. I liked the fact that you were looking from behind the Super Skrull and looking at Sasquatch. And so just great composition there, great cover makeup. Of course, John Byrne, love him or hate him, he's a master at the art form of comics, and it's just amazing talent. Anyway, that's just a few covers. Hey, what are some of your favorite covers? Make a video. You can comment below about what some of your favorite covers are, but make a video and show us some of your favorite covers. They don't have to be the classic iconic covers. They can be, but sometimes we just have personal favorites that speak to us, either because of nostalgia or because of artistic makeup or whatever it may be. But listen, if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. Click the little like down there, like the video, and come on back for more videos. And again, comment. What are some of your favorite covers? But anyway, put those things together. Show us what they are. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.